Hi, this is the disembodied voice of Russ with Wing Saber Historical Fencing. Now I'm going to do slow bouting with Kat, who didn't even expect this to be going on. All right, so here we come. I'm going to use nothing but wide cuts. You ready?
You said slow.
I am being slow. Just because I'm pushing the tempo doesn't mean I'm being fast, right? Here I go. Boom, boom, boom.
Ah, it does.
Okay. So you forced a bunch of hits. How many of those were safe hits that you forced?
Half. Less than half? Okay.
Somewhere between half and less than half. Okay, so when you're practicing your cutting, you make wide cuts and you make tight cuts. But this is a distinction because we need words. If I'm doing practice cuts, pardon me, I'm gonna scoot you out, grab saber. If I'm making my practice cuts, I need my shoulders to move, and I have a low ceiling here, constrained space. I'm letting the shoulder girdle move around so that I get the flexibility in my chest and spine that's desperately needed, especially if you walk around like this all day, which is almost every beginner who ever walks in my door, because this is what computers do to us. Yeah, I know the difference is dramatic when you're seeing it one to the other, right?
Yes.
And I'm a guy with 3 nasty spinal injuries and, well, enough ouchies to have made a failed cheerleader wince. You've got to get the shoulder girdle moving. I mentioned this before. But just because we're doing finger cuts and a tight moulinet doesn't mean I'm doing this.
Mm-mm.
That's Kat over there crying for her wrists as we watch this. I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I want you to watch. We'll try to keep the space a little tighter, so we're going to have much less footwork. So judgy face out there in YouTube stand, we've already thrown the disclaimer on this. All right, so here I am playing with wide cuts. There's nothing constrained about the actions we're performing. I'm certainly moving around. There's certainly, or would be, a ton of heat on my weapon if we were actually swinging that, right? And only right at the end did I go, whoop. So you need to bring the wide cut mentality to your tight cuts. I'm here, I'm not here, and I'm not doing this business. I know when my students are having a good day or a bad day because they do that. And shout out to Michael in East Texas because we had some video and he caught one of my students doing that and sent a helpful video about why it sucks, which is really great because it's one thing to go, oh, I have a bad habit. It's another thing to have somebody from 300 miles away go, do you know that bad habit is costing you in terms of X, Y, and Z? Very super helpful. So if I'm going to play here, I'm not doing this. And I'm not doing Le Marchand's version of Baby Hungarian Saber with the ring. This is useful, especially if I have a sided stance. I can make these actions. And then we can get really cool and start Ivanovskying it up and get really whirling around and Kat's just like, nope, fuck that, I'm running away. We have to move the torso. We have to move the shoulders. This is the power generation that lets the weapon whip around. And it does let it whip around. I just got a comment from a guy yesterday who does a different thing with a heavy saber and was shocked to find out how much his heavy saber just floats in the hand and feels effortless when he uses his fulcrum. But this fulcrum, minus the body movement, is worthless. So, could you do a classical, like English style parry 5 thing? No, not Italian, just pure. So I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to let it fall. I'm going to lift it up and let it fall. And you can practice this with a friend. Now I've got boppers. You give me a little bit of a bounce, which makes it even easier. But I have no lateral motion on this. You could think of this as flexion, extension, flexion, extension. I'm not trying to hit hard. I could use the fulcrum and put a lot of power in there. Kat's got good structure, so that force is going right to her feet. Boing, boing, boing. And if I want to convert this to a different kind of cut, I have to turn my shoulder. So just parry. I'm going to cut 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the same action. 1, 1, 1, 2. I'm turning this versus this is just where did I point my elbow and how did I turn my body? Boing, 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 boing. Work the hell out of that if you're having wrist trouble or if you're having issues with getting up enough power or making parry interposts. And that will reward you with the ability to do cool things like this. Play around, cut 1, boom, pop. And Kat had to go to an oh shit block, and in fact she's in bad form recovering. Look at that wrist. That is a wrist of sadness because it came around tight and fast. That is cut 1, parry 2. Straight out of the synoptic table. We gotta make a t-shirt for that.
I think that reference is like really old at this point.
Okay, it's an elder meme, but it still checks out. Mix in some Star Wars there. So watch this again more slowly. Kat cuts 1. Boom. I'm not gonna try to do this. Why am I not doing that? Because I get hit. But if I come back here, can Kat hit me? There's something in the way. And now I turn and, oh look, that's my moulinet. Smack. So she then has to go into an emergency block. Yay! And what do I do when someone goes into emergency block? I say thank you. So this was prompted by a question from a guy out in Idaho about how does cut 1 Moulinet 2 work? And the answer is it works the same way as any direct cut for us because our moulinets are simply a very tight expression of our basic warm-up cuts. I'm taking my pinky through space. I have a laser pinky. My laser pinky can cut through worlds.
Nice.
And I turn my palm, and I turn my palm about halfway because that's how I learned to incorporate fun false edge cuts. I wouldn't hit you like that on camera unless it was funny.
You would think it was funny.
Good point. So, David, work the crap out of that. You will gradually discover where the direct cuts versus the other stuff comes in. Also, direct cut versus moulinet cut can be a little bit of a misnomer for us. If I just snap with the finger, that's a direct cut. A lot of the rest of our stuff is actually really, really tight moulinets. Here's an example. Cut some, same thing, cut 1. Boom, pop. Notice I wasn't using my system of power generation. Look at my stance. I lined up. I'm a sided fencer. That was a direct cut. Okay, so direct cut, parry riposte, flying parry, use the names your system works on it, right? Now I'm going to do it our style. Now, constrained distance. So Judgy McJudgy face, we have a low ceiling and constrained space. So,
1.
boom, pop. Was that a direct cut or a moulinet? Yeah. Okay, we'll explain to the camera.
It was yes-ish.
Yes-ish. Why is it yes-ish?
You repositioned not just your blade, but your whole self, but that included coming around.
Right. So when we moulinet a hit, it might be a microscopically tight moulinet in a step. It might be a great big moulinet in a step. And it might be, boom, hi, a great big action. Okay? This is all orbiting the question of how do I set up that cut 1, parry 2? How do I make these movements without messing up the wrist? How do I not destroy the structure? And how do those of you who are training for a long time but maybe haven't had the mechanics and the movement base, figuring out how to keep your structure while you do all this? So, have fun, go do the thing, wrist safely, and head bonkily.
But
We've got more videos and content coming, so if you liked what you saw and it was useful for you, please stab the like button, /subscribe, and punch the little bell icon so that you're notified immediately when new content comes available. Thanks, and go do the thing.